Hunting for Answers is a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network and iHeartRadio. This episode contains discussions of childhood sexual abuse, human trafficking, suicide, and self-harm. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Hunting for Answers, a true crime podcast. I'm your host, Hunter, and today we're diving into one woman's story about how she was human trafficked in one of the least expected places, off her college campus. She was a young student just trying to start over, never imagining the dangers hiding in plain sight. A man posing as a friend on campus groomed her into a life she never asked for, being trafficked across multiple states for months, until an unlikely stranger asked her a simple question. A question that ended up changing her life. This is the story of Myisha Growe. Myisha's story starts in New Orleans, Louisiana. Myisha grew up on the West Bank of New Orleans, Harvey, Louisiana.
My name is Myisha. My author name is Myisha Growe. I'm born and raised in New Orleans, been here all my life, and I grew up on a smaller side of New Orleans, which is known as the West Bank in Harvey, Louisiana.
She describes herself as a quiet, shy kid.
I was always sheltered from a lot. I didn't really get to do a lot as like a teenager. I didn't really have like a social life, I guess I would say. But I was always a very quiet, shy child. I had I would say, a good childhood, but there was also some trauma sprinkled in.
That trauma started at home.
I did grow up in a two-parent household. My mom and my dad, they were married, but he was verbally and physically abusive to her. And my sister and I, we had to witness that on multiple occasions. And I would say maybe from as little as 4 or 5 years old.
As a little girl, she wanted to protect her mom, but she felt completely helpless.
The feeling of helplessness that came over my sister and I, it haunted me for a really long time because I always felt like I didn't do enough.
Eventually, her father went to jail. It was just her mom, her sister, and her. There were good moments, big family gatherings, Sundays on the lakefront, 90s baby memories. But even in those good moments, there were cracks forming, and someone close to the family would make those cracks much deeper. In middle school, around age 11, Myisha was at a family sleepover. The adults were in the kitchen, the kids were in the back rooms. A family friend came over, a man everyone knew, everyone trusted, everyone loved.
This family friend was known to all of us. I mean, we loved him. We played with him. We thought that he was just like this wonderful guy because he treated all of the kids really nice.
That night, she was lying on the edge of the bed with two younger cousins behind her when he walked into the room.
He came into the room and he came up to me and he began to caress his hands up my legs. And so I had on shorts and it woke me up because, I didn't know what was going on. And so I woke up, and as soon as I woke up and saw his face, he immediately was like, shh, And, I was like, wait, what? Shush, and I knew it was wrong, and I was scared. So as he's caressing my legs and his hands are moving closer up to my space, I was tapping my little cousin. I was like, wake up, wake up. And she refused, like she just would not wake up. And he was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And I was like, stop. Like I told him to stop. And he just kept trying to go further. And I finally hit my little cousin hard enough um, that she started to move a little bit. You know, she didn't completely wake up, but she did start to move a little bit, you know, talking out of her sleep a little bit. She's trying to come to, and it startled him. And at this point, his hands were on my vagina. Um, and she finally kind of woke up and he ran out of the room. So when he ran out of the room, I ran after him, like I ran behind him to lock the door. But that door didn't lock. And so once my little cousins woke up, I told them what happened. And the one that lived there, because she was also in my room, she said, let's go to the room next door because that room has a lock on it and it works.
She locked herself and her cousins in the next room, listening to the doorknob turn silently.
You heard and you saw just the doorknob turning, and my cousins and I were just huddled up together. They were hugging me, and these are two younger girls, you know. And so they're hugging on me. They're trying to comfort me, and I'm just afraid. Um, and he was not able to get back into that door, thank God. But I didn't sleep that night.
The next morning, still traumatized from the night before, a sad realization began to settle into young Myisha's mind.
The next morning, I woke up and I was so scared to even open the door, even though it's daytime and I hear adults in the front. I'm just afraid. And when we finally came out of the room, he was there. He was still in the house. And he said, good morning. He, as if nothing happened. And that is when I realized I wouldn't win that battle if I said something. Um, that that put something in my head to say, okay, if you tell someone that this happened, they're not going to believe you because of the nature of how close they are. Um, and it hurt me. It hurt me for a really long time.
For a year and a half, she carried that secret alone. When she finally told her mom broke down crying, asking why she hadn't said anything sooner. But when she told her dad's side of the family, the response was very different.
I didn't tell my dad initially, but I told individuals of the family. And the first thing they said, Hunter, was, he didn't mean it. Forgive him. Yeah, yeah. We're people of God and he made a mistake. And that just, it sent me into an even deeper depression because how dare you? Like, what?
Childhood trauma, sexual abuse, minimization, and the pressure to forgive someone who had wronged her. All of it lay the groundwork for what was to come next. After the abuse, her behavior started to change.
I began to act out in other ways. So my behavior began to decline in school, at home. I was rebelling at such a young age, and I became promiscuous at a very young age. Um, and my behavior became really bad. I began to run away at 12 and 13 years old.
She slipped into depression and didn't have the words for it.
I was sad every day. I was crying. I became suicidal at 12 years old. I took approximately 14 Advils. I really thought that would end my life, and I was okay with that, sadly.
She remembers getting dizzy and then nothing.
So that was my first sign of saying, maybe like I have a bigger purpose, but it still didn't register.
In high school, things got worse. After being intimate with one boy, he turned a private moment into public humiliation.
The next day, he went back to school and he spread a rumor and told the school that I did it with the whole entire football team. And believe it or not, that rumor spread like wildfire, and people still believe that about me till today.
She stopped going to school. She started running to any place that felt like escape. Friends' houses, strangers' houses.
I kind of became, like this person who just wanted to hide, right? I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I was, labeled as a nasty girl. I just had so many labels on me at this point, and it was, I just was so desperate.
She overshared with people who didn't deserve her story, and some of them saw her as someone they could manipulate. Looking back, she can see it clearly.
So my biggest vulnerability was being a runaway, and also being at that time promiscuous, and not knowing how to deal with either of those things.
When she left for college, Myisha was trying to reinvent herself, to become the person she always wanted to be. But those unhealed wounds also went with her. College was supposed to be a reset.
I was constantly taken advantage of. And so when I finally went to college, I was just this laid back girl, kid that's trying to revamp my life, like reclaim um, the person that I wanted to become, and trying to navigate to figure out how to do that, Yet I was constantly partying, I was constantly trusting random individuals, constantly allowing strangers to come into my life and, take me to this club or that club, or, as a teenager, 18, 19 years old, going to the strip club. And so that was a huge red flag that I wish I would have saw, or I wish I would have told someone.
College was supposed to be her new beginning, a chance to reclaim who she wanted to become. But in the middle of trying to figure life out, she found herself surrounded by new people, new environments, and new experiences that left room for the wrong person to step in. That period of exploration is normal for so many young people, but it also created a space for someone dangerous to slip in. And that's how she met the man who would become her trafficker. Not in some dark alley, but on her college campus. He wasn't a student. He was an older man connected to some of the other young women on campus.
Like down here, we have like a big bounce culture. So they were bounce dance. They would be in like bounce videos and things like that, and so which was very, very innocent stuff going on there.
He pretended to be a talent scout. Eventually, he fixed his attention on Myisha.
He befriended me. Okay, and I guess he thought that I could also. I was pretty enough, maybe to be one of the dancers in the videos, but me knowing me, I was like, I don't have no rhythm. I can't, like, I'm not gonna look good in the video, things like that. And I always turned it down. I was like, that's not who, I don't know how to do that stuff. And he took that to take a liking to me, um, where he started to come around more, acting as though he was, just scouting for dance talent, video talent, when he was really trying to groom me.
He was extremely friendly, open, down to earth.
I trusted him. I thought that he was just a cool man that, was normally on campus. And so I didn't know his intentions until the day that he actually came to get me.
She and her friends asked him for a ride to the grocery store. He said yes, but only to bring her. She thought it was weird, but she didn't ask any questions and went along. Instead of the grocery store, they pulled up to a hotel. Inside the room, there was a young woman who sat on the bed, counting stacks of cash.
And I was like, okay, like what? Okay, like I didn't, I didn't understand, but I was impressionable, so I was curious. So I'm like, oh, she must have a good job, and okay. And so he was like, Myisha, this is, Anastasia. And she's visiting from Miami, and she's just stopping through, but she's about to go to Vegas um, uh, tomorrow.
Anastasia was young, bubbly, beautiful, and about Myisha's age.
She just chimed in. She was like, "Hey, yeah, I'm Anastasia. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I work from state to state," and she didn't really go into what she did, but she was like, I have a really good job that pays well, but also like I'm going on vacation tomorrow. You should come.
Myisha said no. She didn't know this girl, didn't have money, and had class to get back to. But Anastasia kept pushing.
She was so adamant. She was like, come, it's gonna be so fun. Like we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, like real innocent, like teenage stuff, right? And she was like, I know you don't know me, but I'm so cool, I'm super cool. And he chimed in again and he was like, yeah, she cool, like you should go. And so that now they're both encouraging me and trying to influence me to travel to Vegas. And she's like, matter of fact, I could book your flight right now. Give me your name. I mean, she was just like in it, like on it, And it was almost a feeling of, I felt bombarded, and it was like a moment of confusion to where I had to say yes, if that makes sense. Like I felt like I didn't have an option to say no.
Anastasia offered to book the flight on the spot, and she did. The next day, they flew to Las Vegas. For the first few days, it felt like a vacation. Luxury hotels, food, fun. But they kept switching hotels. And then they downgraded.
The very last hotel we switched to was this hole in the wall janky hotel. And the first thing I remember thinking was in my head was, did she run out of money? I was like, wait. Did these fancy hotels break up? Like, girl, I gotta get home.
She laughed it off, but something felt off. That morning, Anastasia said her boyfriend was coming. When he walked in, Myisha saw a man who looked rich.
And his demeanor was rich, like, and again, I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm just like, okay, it's like this her boyfriend. And so he walks up to me. I'm doing my makeup in the mirror. He walks up to me. He introduces himself, and he asked me a little bit about myself, just a little bit. And he was like, well, I'm glad you came out here with my girl and whatever. And he said, man, we're about to go back to Miami tomorrow. You should come.
She said no. She had school to get back to. But he pulled out his phone and started showing her pictures and videos, shopping sprees, expensive cars, yachts, mansions.
And he was like, "Don't you want to make money like us?" And I remember exactly what I said, Hunter. I said, "Yes, but I want to do it the right way through college. I want to earn my degree." He started talking down on my dream to get a degree, and saying that school wasn't for me, and school wasn't, going to pay my bills, and school wasn't a great option, and I wasn't, going to be anything.
He took the two women to go shopping. When they returned, he told Myisha to pack her bags. She thought it was for a flight home. But instead, he said,
"No, we're going to Miami." And his demeanor, his voice, everything changed. And we got into the car and we stopped at another hotel on the way to the airport. So we're in the car, me and Anastasia. He gets out to go and meet up with another pimp on at the car beside us. The pimp has a girl with him. The pimp takes the girl out of the car and beats her in the hotel parking lot in front of me, in front of Anastasia, in front of him, and the pimp, my pimp. And Anastasia's laughing, and I'm terrified. I'm like, oh my God. And I didn't recognize at that point that that was him sending me a message saying, this can be you. This is what we do.
it was the first clear sign. She wasn't safe, and she wasn't in control. In Miami, everything shifted. They put her in a strip club. They made her walk the streets. And they made her approach cars outside clubs to get quote-unquote dates.
When the first night he put me in a strip club, I didn't make any money. Like I was a stick. I was so little. I was shy. I was scared. And he said, is this all you got? This all you made? I said, yeah. He said, you better go up to one of those cars and get a date right now, or I'm gonna beat you real bad. And I was like, what is a date? Like, what you mean? And he was like, you know what I mean. And when he said that, I was just like, oh my God, like what am I in? Like what is going on? And that's when I finally realized that he was a pimp. It took a long time because I didn't know, but that's when it actually set in. Like, oh my God, I have a pimp.
Her phone was taken. He gave her a burner and let her save just one number.
He said, you can take one phone number out of this phone. Who will it be? And it was my mom. But I didn't have the courage to call my mom and tell her what was going on. I was scared. I was ashamed. I thought that she would blame me.
He sent her across the country. Anastasia was always on her trail, making sure she didn't run. She estimates she was under his control for about 8 months.
And so he just worked me. He worked me and worked me and worked me, and sent me from state to state. And every single time he sent me from state to state, Anastasia came with me. It's extremely violent. It's extremely violent and it's extremely dangerous.
Through it all, one thought haunted her and kept her fighting at the same time.
What kind of kept you going and hopeful that you would make it?
Seeing my family again, because I knew that if anything happened to me outside of Louisiana, like knowing my family didn't know what was going on, what my biggest fear was me being murdered or harmed or shipped off somewhere and my mom not even knowing where to start to look for me at. Like what state do I start from? Where do I start? And that haunted me the whole time. And that's what I thought about every day. If something happens to me, my family won't even know where I'm at or what happened to me, you know? Yeah, so that's what kept me going.
She was staying in a hotel near a 7-Eleven in Washington, D.C. She had just seen a client. She walked out of the hotel lobby with her head down, empty, exhausted, and just trying to pull herself back together.
So I was on my way to the 7-Eleven, which was nearby the hotel that I was staying at. And I saw him, he saw me, and I do believe that he was supposed to be Anastasia's client.
But before anything else could happen, he looked at her and he noticed her. He stopped and he asked a question no one had asked her in months. Are you okay?
I had my head down for so long. Like as I'm going out of the hotel room, you know, out of the hotel lobby, my head is down, right? And I'm just like, okay, let me just, gather my emotions because I had then just been with a client. And that's depressing. That takes so much away from you as a person. It took away from my self-worth, my feelings of who I was, you know, and that was a devastating feeling of emptiness that I pray to God I never have to feel another day in my life.
The man stood there, bright and bubbly, a sharp contrast to everything Myisha had endured.
He was so bubbly. He was like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like on my face, I was just like, but he was so bubbly. I mean, just almost as if he was having the best day of his life, and it was just like, wow. Like I hope to someday get to that level of excitement in my life, of feeling just alive, just by being present.
He listened as she told him the truth, the whole truth. Her pimp, the violence, the girl who watched her, the threats, her fear of dying far from home. And she expected him to just walk away like everyone else had. But he didn't.
You could tell that he cares about women, despite what he may or may not have been, getting ready to be involved in, right? He had a heart. He had a listening ear. He cared that if you didn't want to do that, you shouldn't be forced to do that, right? Because honestly, that's like you're being assaulted over and over and over and over again.
He said, "Let me buy you a flight home." He asked about her life, her major, her dreams. And then he gave her a choice she hadn't had in months. If you want to go home, I'll help you get there.
When he said that he would help and he would get me a flight the next day, I didn't believe him, Hunter. I didn't believe him. And so, you know, when we parted ways, it was kind of just like, you know, let me go ahead on and go back to what I was doing, right? Now there was the piece in me that did believe him. That's why I packed my bags. But it was also a piece of let me just continue to work as well because if I don't and I don't make what I'm supposed to make today because I'm trusting this person to show up for me tomorrow and he don't, then I'm gonna be in really big trouble. And I don't want that either. And so that was a very difficult and scary 24 hours for me. Um, and I prayed, God, please, don't let this man be lying to me, like, please just send me home. I just want to go home.
But even then, her biggest fear wasn't for her own life. It was for her family.
I was afraid to like put my parents in danger because my trafficker and my pimp kept saying, that they could harm my family. And I just wanted to protect them. Like, I didn't want nothing to happen to my siblings, my mom, my dad, and that's what they use. That's the things that they tell you. Like, I'm going to do this and this to your family if you do not comply. Or I'm going to beat you to a bloody pulp. Or I'm going to sell you to a worse trafficker. And the cycle never ends.
They parted ways with a plan in place. He would show up in the morning, and Myisha had to pack her belongings and be ready to run. All she could do then was wait for morning. The next morning arrived, and Myisha woke up to a terrifying sight.
I woke up, and Anastasia it was a room with double beds. She was sitting alongside the bed, upright like this, staring at me with my cell phone in her hand, open, looking at it.
You're lying.
I promise to God.
Oh.
I promise to God, Hunter. My heart dropped.
She scanned the room, expecting her pimp to be there. He wasn't. But Anastasia said one sentence that confirmed her worst fear.
I promise to God, she goes, "So, bitch, you trying to leave us?" And so at this point, it's fight or flight. I know I gotta get up out there. So I jerked my phone out of her hand and I said, "Yep." And I ran out the room.
She grabbed her suitcase, already packed, and bolted into the hallway.
If something is about to happen, it's going to happen in this hallway where there's cameras.
Anastasia walked behind her, whispering threats as she followed.
I'm pacely walking down the hallway to get to the elevator, and she's walking behind me, going, "Oh, like, woo, bitch, and daddy's on his way." And and she's telling me he's on his way, and they gonna get me and everything else.
She made it into the elevator, down the lobby, and out the front doors, where the stranger was already waiting in his car. She hadn't even had time to call him, but he was there, just like he said he would be.
He saw me like rushing out, and he was like, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And I said, "No, she caught me, and I said, "I don't know if my pimp is nearby, but please, let's just go. And so he got out the car, he ushered me, he got my things, he got me in the car, and he drove off.
But even then, she was still terrified.
You have to understand that I'm going from one frightful incident to the next because I don't know this man. Yes, he sounds nice, and yes, he says he sent, he purchased a flight for me, but I don't have the flight information yet. I don't have nothing from him yet. I'm just getting in a car with another stranger, and putting my life in his hands. And this could have turned out terrible, and it didn't, and I thank God for that.
As they drove toward the airport, he opened his center console and handed her the ticket he'd promised.
He opens up his console and he hands me my flight ticket. And he says, "Go home, go back to school, heal, and do something with your life." And I just cried.
At the airport, they hugged. Wrapped up in the moment, she didn't think to get his name or number. She just got on the flight back home to New Orleans. Once she touched back down in New Orleans, it didn't mean that she was suddenly safe or healed.
It was just like a sigh of relief, Hunter. Not because I was out of the clear with my pimp or my trafficker, but I was back home in New Orleans. Well, I knew if you coming for me now, you got to come for all of us. My people coming behind me.
She stayed at her grandparents' house, afraid he knew where her mom lived or where she'd live on campus. She missed a full semester of college.
And I was depressed, traumatized. It was a lot.
Even free from him, she still felt imprisoned by his words. She'd been told over and over she'd never be anything, never graduate, never get a real job, that selling her body was all she could ever do. Eventually, she started to believe it.
It took me approximately, I want to say about 6 to 7 months to finally, um, like, get back out into society. But it was still bad because I started to pimp myself out. So instead of having him controlling me, I started making ads on my own and doing it on my own because I didn't think that I could do anything else.
She describes that time as devastating. She says she felt broken, nasty, and not savable. About a year after escaping her trafficker, she found out she was pregnant by a John.
And to clarify things for listeners who don't know what a John is someone who pays you for sex. So it was a customer. Yes, I became pregnant by one of my Johns, which was just absolutely, you know, mind blowing. Like it's like everything just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Like it's like, man, what the hell? What is like my life is just going, and so I wound up telling him, the man, that I was pregnant, and he actually stayed around for a while.
They dated. He went through the pregnancy with her. They fell in love, and they welcomed a daughter, Madison. She's 11 years old now. But 2 months after Madison's second birthday, he would take his own life.
That was extremely difficult because now he's gone, and I have a baby and I'm going through the trauma of not only, having a child due to me being um, in that situation, of human trafficking, but and prostitution. But now, you know, I'm dealing with suicide, and so it was almost like it just kept coming. Blow after blow after blow.
Her family had to take care of her daughter for weeks because she wouldn't leave the darkness of her home. But in that darkness, she remembered something she'd once said as a teenager. Someday, I'm going to write a book about my life.
You have to do something. You have to get yourself out of this. And I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to write my book. Just randomly, I was like, I'm going to write my book. And that is what saved my life. That is what brought me out of the darkness, the depression, the anxiety, the horror.
She wrote everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the embarrassing, and the heartbreak. She called it Stuck in Traffic by Mimi Crown.
It delves into, sexual trauma, suicidal ideations, the suicide of my daughter's dad, human trafficking, of course, domestic violence. I mean, it talks about each space, and each space holds its own.
She says releasing it was terrifying.
I sat on it for about 3 months after I wrote it. I just read it over and over and over again because it was so traumatizing. But then I said, I felt like I would be so selfish if I kept that to myself. And I was scared, because I knew I would get a lot of judgment, you know, um, regarding the details that I have in the book. But I felt as though helping other people was bigger than the judgment I would get. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to release it and I'm going to help and I want to help save lives and, bring some awareness to human trafficking as well as all of these other things that I went through.
Today, Myisha isn't just a survivor. She's an advocate, especially for young people on college campuses.
I want to continue to be an advocate for human trafficking. And I really want my book to educate people on what it is and how it looks because it doesn't have one certain aspect to it, right? It has so many different levels, Hunter, and it can start here and in here. You never know. But I also want to educate individuals on the vulnerabilities that could lead to human trafficking, such as being a runaway, such as being, sexually assaulted as a child or an adult, such as being, naive and thinking, trusting everybody that you come across.
After her experience, she had to shift her own mindset from everyone is good to being more aware and protective.
I wanted to educate college kids and their parents, to be aware of their surroundings, to, make sure, like, if you have night classes, like, walk in a group, don't walk alone, and don't engage in just strangers that are just around on campus, and they don't go there. You've never seen them before. They're trying to get personal information on your life or someone else's, and just making sure that everyone knows what that looks like and how to um, take action and prevent it, preventative measures. I think all of that is important. And yeah, because a lot of people still don't even know what human trafficking is. And I think that's a problem. I promise I can't tell you, Hunter, how many young women, because I've gone to speak with many, many, I guess I would say, younger students at Southern University, New Orleans, at Xavier University and Dillard University. And I can't tell you how many young girls came up to me afterwards in complete tears telling me something has happened to them on campus or something similar has happened to them and that they've never told anybody. So many young girls, especially at HBCUs, are living with these traumatic secrets and they're afraid of being judged or they're afraid of being, outed or harmed and they don't say anything. And it's time to change that narrative. It's time to take our power back.
Now, Myisha is raising her two daughters, and she's determined to protect them with the wisdom she wishes she had at that age.
I normally, I tell my oldest daughter, definitely, we teach stranger danger, but I teach her what my mom tried to teach me, which is to not be so trusting. Like, it's a difference between being nice versus being super trusting, right? Like, you can still be nice to people. You can still say hello. You don't have to be a complete, rude person, but you also don't have to be too inviting, like too. And by what I mean by that is, hey, how you doing? Like, spark up a conversation. You could just say hi and bye. That's okay. You don't have to engage with everyone on a personal level.
Myisha knows she can't control everything, but she can equip her girls to recognize red flags and to walk away when something feels wrong.
Taking my power back, Hunter, has been one of the most rewarding things that I've ever experienced because they no longer have control over what I say, what I do, how I feel about me. I'm able to walk into my light. I'm able to walk into my confidence. Now I know I'm beautiful. I know I'm smart. I know, all the things that they told me I weren't, baby. Come on now. And I was able to shun that noise out. It took a while though, and so that's what I want to help prevent from traffickers and pimps taking that light away from other young ladies.
She says she'll keep stepping for other survivors and for those who haven't made it out. As for the man who bought her that plane ticket home, she hasn't been able to find him. The airlines can't help without records, but she still hopes he'll hear her one day.
What I would like to say to him is thank you, for one. Thank you for showing me, reminding me who I was, that I was that girl, and encouraging me to tap into her and not allow her to be lost, in a way so that she can help other young girls tap into who they are and do the exact same thing for their lives. Thank you for believing me. Thank you for trusting me and not giving into the fear that these criminals put on outsiders to say, if you step in, you will be harmed. Thank you for not being afraid of that and being a light in my life, because yes, without him, and sir, without you, I would not be where I am today. I don't know where I would be, and that is scary, but I don't have to think about that because I'm here because of you. And so I want to pay it forward, Hunter, in his name.
There's no official count of how many trafficking victims tried to escape, because most cases are never reported and most survivors are never seen. So many stories stay hidden, unspoken, or just simply never believed. That's why Myisha is sharing hers, especially with anyone still trying to find a way out.
To listeners, I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for standing with me. Thank you for encouraging me. Thank you for your kind words and your continued encouragement for me to keep going, for me to continue to break down these barriers, break down these walls that these traffickers and these criminals and these bad people built up for me. I was able to break that down. As what they say on social media, I built this brick by brick. Well, I took it down, I took that wall down brick by brick.
Myisha Growe has survived childhood sexual abuse, human trafficking, intimate partner suicide, and so much more. But she is also a writer, an advocate, a mother, and a woman who refused to let those trying to bring her down have the last word in her story. Her book, Stuck in Traffic, is available through her website, growtogether.com. You can find the link in the description below, along with resources for anyone who may be experiencing trafficking or abuse, or supporting someone who is. As we close out this episode, don't forget to follow Hunting for Answers for more stories like this. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram and TikTok for more true crime stories and case updates. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. Until next time. Hunting for Answers is a production of the Black Effect Podcast Network. For more podcasts from the Black Effect Podcast Network, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.